Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Intro music this week.
Man, that snare drum sound is amazing. Can you hear me, Greg?
I can hear you.
Okay, so second time's the charm.
Yeah, it is.
And hey, sadly, what do you mean, hey, everybody? There's nobody here.
There will be.
The one night I get my mic to work right off the bat.
It's a little early to get the live stream going, so it's all right. I mean, well, it's late normally, but anyway. When it plays again on YouTube, that's where I'm saying, hey, everybody. And also to all the people listening on the streaming services. I don't know if you know this because I haven't told you this, but we had actually around 45, 46 streams left. No, maybe more than that. There's quite a few.
Why?
And I don't know. It's incredible, but here we are.
People have been missing the in-depth analysis that only your homies Greg and Eric from Box Office Battles can provide. Hello, everyone. Eric Billow here. Hi, Greg. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm glad to be back to doing this another week. I enjoyed the first episode, and I think it can only get better from here. It can't get any worse. And I think we've got a good set of topics for tonight. I did want to say thanks to everybody who tuned in. We had nearly 100 views on YouTube in our first episode, and I know that's going to increase as our show increases in popularity, because it can't not. We're just too damn good at this.
That's amazing. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. You hit the nail on the head. But thank you to everyone who did listen. That's pretty cool.
It is. And for all those that are new to the show, this is our second episode of Box Office Battles with Greg and Eric. What we're doing in this show is doing a movie podcast, but on a little bit different level. What we're trying to do is kind of have a bracket style battle to determine what movies are the best in any given category. And we've been going through American Film Institute's top 8 movies of all time, because to do any more than that would be outrageous. So we're only going to do 8 at a time. And tonight, our second round, it's still the first round, second battle is going to be Casablanca, which is the 3 seed, considered the number 3 greatest movie of all time, versus the number 6 greatest movie of all time, Gone with the Wind.
We're doing exactly what we tell people not to do, and that is compare art to other art. But we have the courage, Greg, to do it, to get to the bottom of this. And once we are finished, we will wrap up all of the recordings. We will mail them to the American Film Institute, and we will eagerly await their updated rankings based on our input.
Exactly. I think they change it like every year. So I think that would be something that they would acknowledge. You know,
I would like to think. Hey, I meant to ask you, when we last left off, you and I could not agree on the winner between Schindler's List and that other piece of shit we watched. Oh, Citizen Kane. And then we left it up to a vote, and I wondered, A, did anyone vote? And B, do we have a winner for round number 1?
Well, actually, we do. What we did was we put a vote out during the live stream. And at that time, Citizen Kane was winning with the viewers that were currently in the live stream. Then I opened it up to both YouTube and the Facebook page. And a lot of people voted. And it, unfortunately for Citizen Kane, our first round winner of our first matchup was Schindler's List by about 70% of the vote once it hit live poll.
Yeah, up your ass.
My theory in this is that the people who voted obviously have not seen Citizen Kane. They're just voting based on familiarity with Schindler's List and sympathy that way. Because honestly, I mean, I'm not saying it. It's a great movie. It really is. I said that last week, but it's just so depressing. It's just tough to take. I mean,
well,
both are kind of emotional.
Life is like that sometimes, Greg, and to act like otherwise and to turn a blind eye to it. And I appreciate your restraint, because it looked like you really wanted to dive back into defending Citizen Kane. But sadly, as the way our show is set up, no second bite at the apple. Maybe after we've done this for a while, you and I can each pick 4 films that we thought should have won and put them into a losers battle royale. We'll see.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows what will happen with that?
I don't.
I like to think that life is a highway and I want to ride it all night long. And that's why I just couldn't handle with Citizen Kane. I like things more upbeat. No, I mean, not with Citizen Kane, Schindler's List. Sorry. But it is what it is.
We know that song from the movie Cars.
The movie Cars, yeah.
The kids know it from that. Who was the original artist on that? Because it wasn't Rascal Flatts.
Yeah, maybe
I never remember who that guy is. It's just
Tom. Is his name Tom?
Tom Johnson. Joe. Tom.
He had one hit. I believe he was Canadian too, which is kind of weird because do they have highways in Canada? I think it's just like 2-lane roads
in the very southern part, and then the further you get up there. Well, all right. So which one of these are we gonna start out with, Greg, for tonight's battle?
So let's take a look at the bracket real quick, and this is where we're at with Schindler's List winning.
Man.
So we're going to be covering the movies in the lower right, Casablanca versus Gone with the Wind, and then next week we're going to do Godfather and Lawrence of Arabia. But tonight we are doing Gone with the Wind versus Casablanca, the 3 versus the 6 seed, and we're going to start what we should always do. We get the 6 seed out of the way first, then the top seed will have their chance to go at it. So we're going to,
frankly, Greg,
we're going to start there. Oh, we do have a Mike Florida in the house, so he's saying hi.
That's Mike Leblanovitz.
It is.
Yep, from back in the day.
Yeah, and we're glad to have him. And do want to mention to all the Jarrett Goes to the Movies fans, I mentioned today on Facebook when I promoted this that we may have some surprises in future episodes. Maybe some former members of Jarrett Goes to the Movies that may pop in and do an episode with us. I won't say who just yet, but we do have a couple people that have said that they would be happy to join us. And I think what we're going to try to do is when we get to the final 4 of this, we're not going to go through the entire movies in detail again. We're not going to start over, but we will recap them. And I think we can do the final 4 in one episode just to get to our winner. I think that'll be easy enough. So I think that's when it's kind of good to have our guests in the house to help us with the determination to get to that final 4. So when we get there, we may have a special guest in the house. Just saying.
That'd be rad. Miss those guys. Well, the ones I still talk to.
The ones that
you know who you are. All right.
Is there some you don't talk to? Is there controversy here?
No, not at all. No ill will at all. In fact, I talk to Sean every time either one of us has Long John Silver's for lunch, which I don't know if that's a thing where you're at, Greg, but
we do have it.
It is, fast food, seafood, and I can handle it about maybe twice a year, stomach wise, emotionally. So whenever either one of us has picked up Long John Silver's, off goes a text to the other.
We have that, and we have Captain D's here, and Captain D's is superior in my opinion. But
do you like Wendy's?
I worked at Wendy's all through high school, and then just after high school, and I've never gotten over that. It's like my friend worked on a chicken farm Well, his family ran a chicken farm, and he never could eat chicken after growing up in that environment because of everything that he saw. He wasn't a vegan by any stretch. He just couldn't handle chicken. And that's my thing with Wendy's is I saw how the burgers were. I just saw how everything was made, and it just doesn't appeal to me anymore.
Do you like Wendy's nuts are in your mouth?
See, I did a long story, and that ruined that joke completely. Because if I'd have just said no, you could have said that.
Yeah.
Instead, you let me go on for like 5 minutes. So.
I wasn't in the mood to interrupt, really. Never am. Okay, so Gone with the Wind, Greg.
Gone with the Wind. Interesting.
Some problematic elements to Gone with the Wind that are very, at least they're upfront about. It was on the version that I watched. Up pops the...
really?
This is a product of its time, and
way! I didn't see that.
The depictions were wrong then, as they are wrong now, and so they put all that into the world, and then that movie kicked off, and once you start, Greg, you're on a 4-hour ride, through the Civil War and antebellum Georgia.
Reconstruction. We did it over 2 days, which was fine, to break it up. I've watched it before. My mother was a big fan of this movie. I think my mom was born in 1933, so she was a teenager in the 50s. And this movie was a phenomenon. See, that's what a lot of people don't remember. When we're in 2024 right now, this is nearly, we're encroaching on almost 100 years this movie's been around, and it was made in 1938. So we're 14 years away from when it was being made. It's crazy. But when it came out, and for decades afterwards, this movie was a phenomenon. This was the film, and I think it was up until George Floyd. George Floyd changed everything, and we started re-examining everything that was problematic in our society. And that's when they first started like, hey, should we cancel this film? But then a lot of people said, no, it is a reflection of that time. It's also a representation of the old South. Granted, they get a lot of things historically inaccurate. Sometimes they get some accurate. But it's heavily based on the Margaret Mitchell novel. So yeah, it's a film. It's a film of all time.
Well, listen, every time I have to do research for trivia and it's about highest grossing movies or whatever, I believe to this day Gone with the Wind, adjusted for inflation, still ends up as number one, which is pretty wild when you consider all the Avatars and who knows what else, Toy Stories and of the world. So look, I gotta be honest, this do I have to, all right, here's what we're gonna do. I just agreed to a rule in my own mind. I'll just come out and say if I have seen one of these movies before.
Okay.
And that'll save us a bunch of time, because I'll only probably say that twice a year.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, I don't watch movies. So naturally I would be on my second movie review podcast in the last couple of years. Makes a lot of sense. So no, of course I had not seen this before. I was really taken by this, Greg. I was pretty surprised. Listen, I know it's based on a novel, and we always say, you have to cut so much out when you make a movie out of a novel. And we see that with the Harry Potterses and the Lord of the Ringses and those types of things. You'll never encapsulate all of the character building and that kind of stuff that happens in a novel. But I mean, I understand the reputation this film has. It was pretty, problematic things aside, and look, you just have to go into it knowing that it was just a different time. And I wouldn't say that I saw anything that was being intentionally or overtly problematic, as much as just we know better now than we did then. I didn't see anything that made it a point to be cruel or made it a point to be nasty. It just it's like you said, that was 86 years ago, and a lot has changed for the better, some for the worse, but mostly for the better, at least when it comes to our treatment of people as people.
For sure.
I think
I
we're
think
we're further along, probably not as far as we need to be, but much further along than we ever were. So,
yeah.
so that's good. Listen, Greg, I know, I don't know where you want to start off with this, but I saw a review of this film and it said the thing about this is it's set during the Civil War and antebellum, but it's really about the true cost of war.
That's true.
And I can see that, but I think it might be better described as the true cost of narcissistic personality disorder. This
Yeah.
Scarlett O'Hara,
Yeah. She's a piece of
man,
work.
why didn't you warn me when I was about to? I know you want to leave me, unpoisoned by your opinions, but my God, what an unlikable character.
Well, first of all, I want to say that you not having seen these movies, it doesn't mean that you don't have an interest in movies. You do watch some movies, but mostly more modern movies.
That is true.
Me, I grew up in a theater. I explained that last episode. And so I watch everything. And it's just, I enjoy film and I watch a lot of it. I did my master's in film. We've talked about that. So this film, growing up, it wasn't looked as down upon as it is today under these circumstances. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and it was even loved by Republicans and Democrats alike. I mean, they had, when Ted Turner bought the rights to it, he was a big Democrat with Jane Fonda. They made a big re-showing for the 50th anniversary in Atlanta with all kinds of people there that were, so nobody was drawing attention to those problematic scenes. But the thing is that those things, like you said, it's not overt. In fact, I read that when they were filming the movie, that they were actually contacted by different Black organizations that were afraid that they were going to include verbiage from the book that they did not want to see in film. In the book, it mentions the KKK, it uses the N-word. And so the producer, David Sesnick, he said, all right, we're going to take that stuff out. And so I think rightly so. I think if those things would be left in, and we're watching that where they fought over the word damn, but yet you leave that other stuff in, that would be kind of crazy.
Yes.
And I think it really helped the film along. But back to what you were saying, the movie, of course, its central figurehead, she's in just about every scene, is Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara. An amazing performance, probably, in my opinion, one of the top 10 female performances of all time in a film. She's outstanding. If you watch other screen actresses like Bette Davis trying out for this part, they pale in comparison to her. She is amazing in it. And, at the beginning of the film, it opens with Tara, this beautiful plantation in the Old South. And she is the beautiful young, central figure of this plantation. And every man wants her, and she knows it. I mean, she knows it.
And not only knows it, but uses it to her advantage where possible. And the only time she's not using it to her advantage is because she is taking a nap during a party. And that's it.
But even during the nap, she gets up.
Yeah.
But everybody's supposed to be sleeping. She is, in the beginning of the film, what's interesting about the film, it's 4 hours, like you said. Her character transformation, she never stops being selfish. She never stops making it all about her, but she does mature, and her methods change from being kind of childish manipulation that she does with men, where she knows men are interested in her, like in the opening scene where she tells every guy how she wants to have barbecue with them. It's freaking brilliant.
I mean, to be fair, I do that too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if there's an offer of barbecue, I'm into it. So, you're right. And we see, obviously, I guess part of that transformation is that her circumstances drastically change from being the belle of a large working plantation to, she's not going to go hungry, Greg,
right.
but she is in quite a predicament as the film moves on, both in the financial and emotionally. And do you think that she was ever actually in love with this? I forget this fella's name.
Ashley.
Not. Yes. Yeah. Or
I,
was
I
this all just a childhood fixation that turned into some other weird thing? I had a hard time figuring that out.
you know, I think that he was something that she couldn't have. He was the son of the neighboring plantation owner. So she built, like a lot of people do, like all of us do, this thing in her mind. And the way she's written, even in the book, is, written about how she's infatuated with this guy. She can't let it go. And it messes up every single other relationship that she has, because it's clear that Ashley is in love with his cousin.
Yes, they didn't ever get to the bottom of
They,
how
they
far.
say,
First cousin, is it?
yeah,
First
they
cousin?
didn't say, well, they don't say whether it's first cousins, but they make a comment in the movie. The Wilkses always marry their cousins. They're
Yeah,
that
I
kind
mean,
of people.
if you're trying to consolidate power, I guess it's, well, I don't know. Seems that might it be advantageous to marry the neighboring plantation owner's daughter and
Yeah.
set yourself up. But
Yeah. So yeah,
yes,
I think that she thinks she's in love with Ashley. And I think that because it's something she can't have, it makes her more doggedly determined to have her.
well, it's as you already stated, it's only her opinion that matters in her mind. Everything she does in her is, in the service of her own self-interest. So, yeah, that was pretty.
Riplius has a pretty interesting opinion. Ashley was a studious man, while the others were about boozing and shooting each other. Well, they were very riled up Southerners ready to go to war with those damn Yankees. And Ashley was a grown up. And it's just the way it was.
Well,
who else was a grown up?
Yeah.
This guy.
I had to pause at some point and just look up, obviously, their ages in real life.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know. The thing about this film is that it is not about a winter summer romance. It's not built around the age difference. In fact, they just don't ever mention it, don't treat it like anything. But boy, that was fucking weird.
What's interesting is
full on like weird old man mustache.
So novel wise, Rhett Butler is in his mid-20s to late 20s. And same thing with Ashley Wilkes, played by Leslie Howard. But Leslie Howard was 45 when they made the film. The problem was that after everybody had read the book, and they knew they were making the movie, the fans were like, we have to have Clark Gable. He is Rhett Butler, and he really is. He's much older than Vivien Leigh in the film, but it is what it is. Ashley Howard, 45 years old, but they used makeup and hair pieces because he's supposed to play a late 20s, as well as Clark Gable playing Rhett.
Man, I don't know. Every late 20s person I've ever seen did not look like this. But obviously,
okay. I got a rebuttal to that one. Have you ever gone back to see those photos from the 70s and the 80s of people in their 20s, and they look like they're in their 50s? I mean, seriously, there was a
thing on Reddit the other day of someone who had like a VHS camera at their high school in like the late 80s, and all these kids looked 25.
Exactly.
And was wild.
So we can't really say what it was like in 1860. I mean, those people died when they were like 40. So I think in the 20s, they could have.
He was going through his midlife crisis by this point.
Exactly. I mean, seriously, they got TB and died at 40. So I think that's.
Well, he's a great actor, a great performance, and he plays an absolutely perfect foil to Scarlett's, nonsense. I mean, boy, you and I covered Uncle Buck a few years ago, and the daughter in that film is one of the most unlikable characters ever. And I found myself wondering if by the end of this 4-hour ordeal, I would have Scarlett ahead of her. The answer to that question is no. That
Oh,
bitch
okay.
from Uncle Buck is still the worst. And I wish she would have got eaten
Yeah.
by a dinosaur.
Yeah,
And
I
Uncle Buck
agree.
too. But
I agree.
so this reminded me. Did you watch Game of Thrones, Greg?
Yes.
So
Yes, I did.
I didn't. And so listen, I'm going to. What a good segue, right?
Yeah, that really works.
No, and listen, I'm only saying that because I don't want you fucking nerds to start telling me where I got this story wrong and it's actually King Targaryen or what the fuck. Listen, but the kid apparently who played is it Joffrey, the
Mhm.
child's
Mhm.
king who's so
Yes.
terrible.
Yes.
That he was so convincing in that role that people would jeer him on the streets, that people were kind of nasty to him in real life.
Right.
And obviously that goes to show. And then I don't think he's done much in acting wise
Yeah, that's a good
since
point.
then.
Yeah.
Or maybe he has, and he just has the bank to be particular about projects that he takes on.
Mhm.
But that is the sign of a really well done role, right? And so I was able to finally convince myself that this actress isn't a total bitch. But it was real
Oh, yeah.
close there for a while. I really had convinced myself that Vivian Leigh was the worst person on earth, just
Well,
due to Scarlett O'Hara.
yeah, well, she was a British actress that left her husband and child to run to America with Laurence Olivier so she could make her name for herself in acting. So you weren't too far off.
Oh, well,
And then she eventually married Laurence Olivier and stayed with him for 20 years. She's a gorgeous figure, and I'm not just saying it. She's just captivating on screen in this role, and it fits because the character is supposed to be this vile. It really is. In fact, it was told that the second director, Victor Fleming, who had came in, because they had multiple directors on this. It was a very difficult shoot. It was a lot like Apocalypse Now trying to film. They went so long. They spent millions of dollars making this film. Now it made 850 in real money, but they spent like 3 million to have it made, which is unheard of in 1939.
sure.
And but Victor Fleming, the second director, Vivian Leigh hated him because he told her that she needed to play Scarlett like a bitch, that she needed to be a heartless bitch. And Vivian Leigh didn't want to be seen that way. She wanted to soften the character a little bit. And that was not what they wanted. That was not how the story was. So she didn't get her way and she plays it. So she plays it to the hilt, man. And it's sad because I find the movie sad at times because later on in the film, when we start to realize that she is in love, maybe with Rhett Butler, she keeps screwing it up because she's a bitch. She can't help herself.
Yeah, she can't get out of her own way.
Exactly. He comes into the room and he says something a little bit off-putting, so she just dismisses it and turns cold. Starts off smiling at him, and then bam, she just hits him with the coldness. And it's like, damn, they were so close. There's so many scenes, like when she's sick and she's calling out for him, and he's waiting outside the room, and the freaking aunt won't let him in there because he's sick. And he's like, did she call for me? Yeah, she did, but nobody tells him that, so he doesn't know.
I know.
It's a great, for that time, especially 1939, it's a great way of storytelling that star-crossed romance that just doesn't work out.
I was really surprised that it seemed very it seemed very ahead of its time in, I mean, really everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, that plot device of star-crossed lovers specifically, but the whole thing felt massive to me. The performances felt massive. The story was massive. The colors, I mean, I found myself just kind of looking around the scenes and the sets because like you just mentioned, they must have spared no expense on all of that. I would watch, honestly, if you told me that Apple TV or Netflix, somebody was going to do a serialized version of this today, kind of like, I don't know what's Downtown Abbey, I would watch that for sure, and it would leave so much more room to be true to the novel. And I would love to see what they would do, because you couldn't just reimagine this film.
Mm-mm.
You would have to have seen it and studied it to make it better,
Right.
from that point of view,
Oh, I agree.
and it would blow people's minds. I'm surprised. I don't know if there's some Mitchell family trust issue that this hasn't been, and I'm not advocating for remaking this as a movie. I don't know why you would, but as a serialized soap opera of sorts, I'd watch the hell out
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah, and it's the thing that for me would be after seeing the original, it really hard for me to imagine anyone other than Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable as the two leads. So they would have to casting would have to be unknowns. It would have to be somebody that was outstanding. So it would be, I mean, they went through a grueling casting process for these two leads. Well, other than Clark Gable, they wanted like they were trying to get around it because Clark Gable was locked in with another studio. And so they tried Errol Flynn, they tried a bunch of other people, and it just didn't work. And so they ended up paying off the other studio to get Clark Gable. Vivian Leigh, she wasn't even in the running. There was like 20 other actresses ahead of her. And the producer, Selznick, was just not happy with any of them. And then she shows up in Los Angeles with Laurence Olivier, who has the same agent as Selznick's brother, and gets a screen test.
Nice.
And as soon as he saw her, it was like, okay, finally, we've got her. And it was the right move. It was really the move.
It sounds like they kind of knew going into this that it was going to be big. Maybe they didn't realize how big, but being, such an arduous process, buying the rights to it, buying someone out of a studio contract, which we know actors at the time were pretty locked in and under the thumb of whatever studio they were signed up with. The expense, and what were there, 3 different directors?
Oh yeah. There was 2 primaries. And then they had an assistant director, and even Selznick was doing some director, and they had assistant director. Yeah. They went through so many, and screenwriters, tons of them, until what was funny was that the original screenwriter wrote a 5.5-hour treatment, and they went, "You're insane." And they took it, and then they started rewriting it. But Sidney Howard, who was the original screenwriter, they brought him back when they couldn't make a good film, and they just whittled his down to 4 hours, and he ended up winning the Oscar for best screenplay because they could
how
not,
much fat can you trim off of
that
whatever
book. It's a massive book.
Before you lose the heart and soul. But it sounds to me like, and obviously I wouldn't know, but that the novel itself was already a pretty big success, and it only stands to reason that the movie adaptation of it would be big. It was big. The color, the settings, the everything, it was big. This movie was big.
Most movies were still in black and white at the time. The exception was like The Wizard of Oz and this that they decided to do in Technicolor. It's crazy. And they've re-released it over the years. They had, up until the 90s, they had released it like 8 times, and it made money every single time. It was selling out all over the country. So it's just until lately where we kind of devalued it based on the problematic issues. And I get it. I do get it. But if you can put those aside and just watch the movie as it is, it's an extremely entertaining 4 hours. Because it goes through so many changes. It does the beginning plantation era, going into the Civil War, then coming the Atlanta scenes with the bombings.
It was chaos, man.
Unbelievable. It's done so well.
It made me feel anxious just watching it, and set aside for a moment the fact that I'm already always an anxious person. But I mean, it was really, like you said, moving from scene to scene and kind of act to act.
Yeah.
It was very well done movie making or art making, where there is a feeling to get across, there's a point to get across, and they succeed by every metric. I would say that even though we have the battle of 3 and 6 for the AFI top whatever movies, we also ended up here with two very, very quotable movies, maybe
Oh, for sure.
two of the most quotable that we're going to see. Number one on the AFI list of top lines from any movie is from this movie, Greg.
Yeah, for sure. And they had to fight to keep it in, which is crazy. Last really not the last line of the film, but close to the last line of the film. It's what everybody remembers. And you're right. This film has a lot of connections to its opponent, to Casablanca, which is crazy. Max Steiner did the orchestra. He did the composing for this. And Max Steiner was the John Williams. Everybody knows John Williams from modern day Empire, Star Wars films, Superman, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Everybody knows John Williams. So many Spielberg films. But Max Steiner was that John Williams at the time, and he did the composing for both Gone with the Wind and Casablanca.
Very interesting, because I have a note about the music in Casablanca. So
yeah, it's brilliant, and there's some really good stuff on Max Steiner out there. He was really the guy in 1930s 40s Hollywood for composing. He was the one you wanted to have.
Say, champ, if you're gonna make a movie, then you gotta bring in old Max
Steiner. Did you freeze? Uh-oh. Looks like he froze. Look at him. Look at that. It just froze. What happened? Where'd Eric go? He probably lost his power. Anyway, Kriplius said this came out when Germany was bombing its way across Poland, and that is true. That Eric just completely froze on the screen. This is brilliant. But yeah, you're right, because when the movie came out, Germany was in 1939 was going across Poland, and a lot of people had to were affected by that while they're making the film. No more than the black cast who had been downtrodden, and Selznick himself, when he saw what was happening to the Jews in Germany, was trying. He looks so happy. He'll be back, I'm sure. He does. He looks so happy with his joke, and then all of a sudden he froze. So I don't know if if he lost his connection or his internet went out, but whatever. But to go back to that, was that Selznick started to sympathize with the black cast because how they had been treated during the Civil War was very parallel to how the Jews were being treated in Germany in 1939. So he did have an effect on how he tried to portray the black people in Gone with the Wind. One of the things that I wanted to point out about Gone with the Wind that is a parallel to modern day movie fans, if you don't see this, I've watched this movie a ton of times with my mother growing up, watching it on my own just to study it. And one of the things I noticed in Gone with the Wind is the similarities between Clark Gable's portrayal of Rhett Butler and Han Solo. If you're a fan of Star Wars, as I am, let's see, I think Eric is back.
I don't know. I'm like 2 for 2 on episodes with some sort of bullshit trouble.
What happened? Did your computer freeze up? Did you lose Wi-Fi? Somebody unplug your router?
My computer thought my 1920s reporter guy, Max Steiner bit was too much, and it just shut down. Then it put a message up that said, "We're trying to reconnect. In the meantime, quit trying so hard." So I don't know.
Yeah. So I was just saying while we were waiting for you to come back, how much Rhett Butler reminds me of Han Solo. And it's so funny because watching this through, I was watching that, and I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, but my favorite Star Wars movie is right behind me, Empire Strikes Back. Favorite movie, probably one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of the reasons is because of Han Solo and that character. He's the rogue, he's the scruffy nerf herder. And in the movie Gone with the Wind, Clark Gable he doesn't have an alliance with the South. My alliance is money, baby. He even says,
yeah, he's so debonair and in it for himself, just like Han Solo, kind of a flying, like you said, no allegiance to either side. Yeah, what a good, I hadn't thought of it.
When they have the war meeting, how he pisses everybody off by saying, "You guys are going to get your ass whipped." Basically, he's like, "You guys you're screwed." And I love that because he carries that through the whole film, when Scarlett goes to visit him in the jail to try to get some of his money, he's pretty much bought all the Yankee soldiers there.
Yeah, he was playing cards with them, and they had to walk himself back to his cell.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant character.
amazing what they'll let you do when you lose a bunch of money to them. So
there's a scene in, and I'm going to play the scene from Gone with the Wind. There's a scene in Empire Strikes Back. There's a couple scenes where Han Solo tries to, wants to give Leia a kiss, and she says, "I'd rather soon kiss a Wookiee," and he says, "I can arrange that. You can use a good kiss." And then later, he's got her kind of in a secluded spot where she's working on the Millennium Falcon, and he starts putting the moves on her, and then just when he's about to get there, she kind of slips away. And there's a similar scene in Gone with the Wind with Rhett Butler, but it comes much later in the film when he's trying to convince Scarlett to marry him after she's already been married to the young soldier who dies of pneumonia. Let's talk about him later. And then the guy who owns the lumber mill, who's like much older than her, Mr. Kennedy, and maybe try somebody for a real man for a change. And everything that Clark Gable says in this scene is brilliant, because he's exuding that Han Solo character in my opinion. He's that roguish character, and this is probably some of his best lines in the film. So let's watch this real quick.
You'll marry me.
You? I don't love you. And I don't like being married.
Did you ever think of marrying just for fun?
Marriage fun? Fiddly-dee. Fun for men, you mean?
I love that
Hi,
one.
Jeff. Do you want me to hear you outside?
You've been married to a boy and an old man. Why not try a husband of the right age, with a way with women?
You're a fool, Rhett Butler. When you know I shall always love another man.
Oh shit.
Stop it. You hear me, Scarlett? Stop it. No more of that talk.
Don't, I shall faint.
I want you to faint. This is what you were meant for. None of the fools you've ever known have kissed you like this, have they? You're Charles, or you're Frank, or you're stupid Ashley.
Like how he throws stupid Ashley in there. Stupid Ashley, you freaking nerd.
Say you're going to marry me. Say yes. Say yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's just that easy, Greg. If they say no,
just kiss him.
yeah.
I mean, but think about it.
That off.
That is how Han Solo does it in Empire Strikes Back. He finally gets a good kiss on Leia, and he wins her over. The point is, I think, in those films, though, is that he was a man's man. He wasn't really forcing herself on her. They already had been down this road several times, and he just got fed up with her playing a game with him.
Well, Greg, they have been down that road several times, but consent can be withdrawn at any time, regardless of the past nature of your relationship.
Not in 1939.
Oh, yes, not in 1939, but
and not in 1861,
and not during the Civil War, maybe. But yes, yeah, I will go on record. I have the courage to state that publicly.
Yeah.
So
but anyway.
Well, I really that's a really good good analogy that you mentioned. I hadn't thought of it, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what carries the film, in my opinion. That's why so many people wanted Clark Gable. One of my favorite top 10 favorite films of all time, and you've probably never seen this, is It Happened One Night with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. If you've not seen it, should see it. It's a romantic comedy. It's brilliant. I absolutely adore it. And Clark Gable carries the film. Claudette Colbert is amazing too, but Clark Gable carries the film. And he, in a way, other than Vivian Lee's performance, the two of them carry this film. When they're on screen together, it's freaking lightning in a bottle. It's brilliant. It's done really well. And then you've got Ashley Wilkes, who the love of her life, who's played by Leslie Howard, which I was going to say going into this a whole bunch of bad things about how kind of a wuss Ashley Wilkes is. He's a wuss. I mean, he really is in this film. He is tight pants. He's safe. He marries his cousin. And
the one time I thought he was going to make a stand, he's come back from the war. Things are not going well financially around. Scarlett once again finds herself alone with him and throws herself at him. And he says, it's not, can't happen, not gonna do it. And I'm like, okay, look, someone finally is standing up to this bitch. Except about 14 seconds later, they're making out. And so it's like,
Yep.
well, typical man.
Oh, yeah.
Don't talk about it, be about it.
And Rhett Butler says later on, he's like, you're friggin' Ashley with his honor, but yet he's friggin' got you cornered in the freaking lumber mill later on. He's, just using you for his own pleasure. He's a bit of a dick. Now, I was going to say things about the actor being that way, but then I read a little bit about Leslie Howard. Leslie Howard, the actor, first of all, was Humphrey Bogart. Another connection to Casablanca was Humphrey Bogart's idol. He taught Humphrey Bogart how to act on film. They were in a movie together, and Leslie Howard, who plays Ashley, took him under his wing. Also, Leslie Howard. Now, this movie came out just prior to World War II in 1939. When you were offline, we were talking about this. Poland was invaded by Germany, and it affected the movie. Leslie Howard went back to England and was working as a spy, as an actor for the British Empire, and was killed when his plane was shot down by German Luftwaffe over the Bay of Biscay.
Huh.
So freaking Leslie Howard was a war hero.
So, Greg, you don't want to talk shit about him?
No, not anymore. I just wanted to say that his character was a wuss, but in real life, that man was badass.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say that right
well,
now.
again, it is so hard to, and especially when it's the first time you've ever seen someone on film. I've never seen Vivien Leigh in any other films, so this is my first introduction to her. It's hard to shake that when your first impression of them, no matter what you see them in after the fact. I'm not going to see this dude in any films, and he probably didn't make very many more films, if I had to guess, considering he died a hero.
A lot of the films he made were before this, of course. He was 45 when he made this, 50 when he died. And but he, like I said, was a badass. You know who else was a badass? Segueing into the next part of this.
Troy Aikman?
No, this lady here. This lady.
Yeah,
here.
she is kind of the comic relief for a lot of these scenes, even if the comic
in a
relief
way
isn't exactly
in a way, but also when I was watching it this time, I got more than just comedy from her. Her name's Mammy. It's played by Hattie McDaniel, who won Best Supporting Oscar. It was the first African American to win an Oscar in this country, and she's an amazing woman. She was actually mentoring all the black actors on the set on how to act and portray, and not to be ashamed of this, because they were trying to portray something from the past. But the thing is if you watch the movie again, I've watched it a bunch of times and never really saw it until I watched it this time. Her name's Mammy, and she's more of a mother to Scarlett than Scarlett's own mother. Scarlett's own mother is always flittering around and helping the white trash slattery girl, and always, helping stuff around on the plantation. Mammy is the one woman who stays with Scarlett no matter how she acts, no matter how she behaves, is her mother, her mother figure in the film. And
I'm sure at this time and place, that was a pretty common occurrence, wouldn't you think?
Oh, definitely. And so there's more to this character. And granted, she's hilarious. The whole petticoat scene when Rhett Butler buys her the petticoat, and she hates him and won't wear it. Then all of a sudden he hears her walking around and it's rustling. He's like, "What's that rustling sound?" "Oh no, that's that petticoat you bought me." I was like, that's hilarious. It's brilliant. Probably my favorite scene with Mammy is when Scarlett is outside of the lumber mill and she's messing with her sister's boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, my hand is cold. Do you mind if I put it in your pocket?" And the camera pans back. She's looking like, "Who? What?"
It was that I cracked up, and she didn't say anything. It was that look, like, "Are you shitting me right now?"
It
was
is
so
brilliant.
good.
So yeah, that does make she was, and honestly, she deserved the Oscar. She was nominated against Olivia de Havilland, who played Melanie, and who was outstanding as Melanie. And I mean, because to me, what's brilliant about Olivia de Havilland as Melanie is that as bad as Scarlett is, Melanie is so freaking pure.
Yeah.
It's like, can anybody actually be that angelic?
You can when you're setting up a movie to make one of the characters the worst person imaginable.
Yeah.
I don't see it in real life very often, but yeah, for the sake of the movie, it plays a big role, and she played it really well.
Yeah, she was amazing. Of course, Maid Marian in the original Adventures of Robin Hood. She was a great actress, but it's crazy because she does exude this angelic innocence, and I just absolutely love her character in it. And I've known people like that. You wonder what they're like in real life, because oh, here we got Mike Florida asking if anybody else is enjoying a good adult beverage while watching. These are for all our people listening on the streaming. My best friend got me a Dogfish Head had 120-minute beer. There's a lot to take in for my birthday. The beer is amazing, but a meal at 15.5 ABV. It's delicious, but not for the faint of heart. That's a lot, dude.
It's a
That's
lot. I
mess.
don't like the taste of pine sol, so IPAs are not for me. Also, at 15% ABV, there was a brewery here. I think it was Revolver. I don't know. They had this beer called the Velvet Hammer, which is kind of like that, right? 20%, 15%. And I tried it once, and it had the aftertaste of liquor, just not of beer, of drinking, a scotch or something. It was pretty intense. I am drinking a decaf community coffee. This is out of Louisiana, I believe.
Okay.
From their 2024 vintage.
I am drinking a Woodford Reserve Father's Day 2024 special that I got when I did a tour of the distillery. It was a limited edition. You could only get it there at the distillery, and it was for Father's Day, and that's when I went, and it's delicious.
They just pour all that stuff in different bottles from the same.
And it's delicious.
Okay, perfect.
It's delicious. But
you were
anyway,
recently down there, weren't you, with some of your
that's when I got it.
High school buddies?
Yep, high school buddies.
I don't know who your buddies are or where you know them from.
These are just Air Force buddies that I've known for I've known one guy for about 12 years, and then he's introduced me to other people. And so yeah, a bunch of us went down there and we did Buffalo Trace, we did Woodford Reserve, we did New Riff, and went around on the Bourbon Trail and got some bottles of good stuff. So
amazing.
Love me some bourbon. But back to the movie. Thank you, Mike, for interjecting that. And anyway, the thing about the film, skipping ahead, overall, it is about the loss of a civilization. It is about losing the South the way it was. Good thing or bad thing. What's funny is somebody compared it in one of the documentaries I was watching, getting ready for this episode, and the movie is extremely popular in Japan. And the reason is today it's extremely popular because of Japan's checkered past, and they're looking back on their history with fondness, even though they did atrocious things. And so they still look at the people of that era as still being people and still having stories to tell. And so even though the Old South was based on slavery, was not something today we would hold up and look up with glory, there were parts of it that had an identity that when it did go away after the end of the Civil War, that there was everything changed. The South changed, through Reconstruction, it changed. The movie goes into the carpetbagger stuff. It goes into so many things.
It would be great, obviously, if you could unweave somehow the times with the reason for the times, and a lot of, like you said, the obviously the economy built on the back of
Yeah.
black slaves, and a lot of the social norms of the time heavily related to unequal treatment and
Yeah.
all of those things. But if you could unweave, because the movie does portray the South, at least as they see themselves, as the
Ah,
traditional Southern gentleman fighting against the
yes.
uncivilized Yankee aggressors. And so they but we see that in the South. I'm from the South. I'm from Texas. It's a little different of a thing than being from Georgia,
Yes.
Mississippi, Alabama. But we still have down here cotillions. We still have finishing schools where
Thanks. Yeah.
girls go to learn all of the proper things, and they have their I don't know if they're coming out parties where they're
Oh yeah. Yeah.
introduced as uh, uh,
Women.
women in that society. That
Yep.
still happens down here. I don't know how prevalent that is in you know Idaho or
Not so much in Ohio.
Illinois or Ohio. So
Yeah, in
um,
Ohio, they just buy them a packet of Cools and a malt liquor,
yeah, send them on their way to have some. But here, go have babies.
or a White Claw these days. Back in my day, it was
Yeah, Four Locos were a good
Four
choice there
Locos,
for
yeah.
a while.
Good.
But yes, I think there still you see it in some of the SEC schools and their Greek
Oh, yeah.
life. You see it in,
Yeah.
like I said, these cotillion things, a desire to preserve those parts that you can, those parts that you can draw out from the horrendous kind of overriding situation of the time.
Right.
And so that's still, I think, something we as Southerners would like to think about themselves, that they are the
Right.
distinguished Southern gentleman. Um, and whether that's misguided or not isn't really for us to say, but it's definitely still a thing. And so you can
Yeah.
see why films like this and the way that it affects other cultures. I think that makes sense. I can see that.
Yeah, I would. I think it does affect future cultures. As we've come out of this era. I mean, I remember growing up. Where Southern pride was a thing. Leonard Skinner is big, and I, ended up for me. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and my first duty station as an Air Force member was in Montgomery, Alabama, of all the places to go. And I had never been other than Texas. So my opinion of Texas is, because I have family in Texas, is they kind of tapped out during the Civil War. They were like, not it. We're gonna fight the Mexicans, and you guys do your own thing. And then after the Civil War, they were like, all right, we'll just be on the side of the winner. But we're talking about Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all that, South Carolina. And so I went to Montgomery, Alabama, and I was not prepared. And this was in 92, and they were still fighting the Civil War down there, because the black population stayed on one side of Montgomery, the white population stayed on the other side. Never the twain should meet. You go into one side and then they're not happy. You go, and being a Yankee, I was completely screwed, because they don't like Yankees in South. This was in 92. Now, I will say, I have family in that area, and I've gone down there to visit, and things have mellowed a little bit, but things change with time. So there is a little bit more of a melding of the populations, but it is interesting how things have done. And like I said, that those values that were in Gone with the Wind still get passed down. People love, I mean, up until, like I said, even up until George Floyd, people loved that movie as a representation of the past. I mean, it really was. And for everything considered. So,
well,
crazy.
like we said, we've come a long way, and probably not as far as we need to travel. So, I mean, and what Mike says about Florida having a southern vibe anywhere outside the big cities, I've heard that about places like Pennsylvania, where they say there's Pittsburgh
Yeah.
and Philadelphia, and everything in between is Kentucky.
Yeah.
Pennsyltucky is what they call it. So,
Without a
we
doubt.
probably don't have time to get into, urban versus rural,
No.
But there is a lot of merit to this film. I was pleasantly surprised. I did text you and say, no, you texted me to warn me that we had 4 hours of this.
Yes. Yeah. I did warn you this time. I did warn you.
And I can't say that it flew by, but I definitely don't think it felt like 4 hours, even though I did have to watch it like you over 2 evenings. So
Yeah,
Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. Before I get into the last points of it, I will say that it is one of those films, like, even if you aren't into old classic films and you put this movie on, and even with its problematic issues, like showing the slaves being happy to see their masters, but anyway, other things we didn't get into, but even with the problematic issues that the movie has with Prissy, who's another character we didn't talk about too much. I don't know nothing about Birth and No Babies. Actually, Butterfly McQueen, who is the character who played that, a very intelligent woman, who said that the only thing she wouldn't do was let Vivian Lee slap her for real or eat watermelon on screen. Everything else, she said, all right, I'm good. And that's a great quote.
Right.
But for everything that it is, what it is an exceptionally filmed movie. What's brilliant is what a lot of people don't realize is that the big set pieces, like the burning of Atlanta, like 12 Oaks at the beginning, Tara at the beginning, these are all painted cells. So half of the film was the actors. Everything above them was hand painted. Unbelievable FX department. When you watch it, it doesn't look hand painted. It looks spectacular.
It doesn't look hand painted, but there's something just different enough about it to your eye, because you've not seen this type of art done in this way often, that it was mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was looking around the screen for, in almost every scene, the colors and the contrast and the lights and darks, not people, but the sets. It was really, it's fascinating. I mean, I might be the only person who's not seen Gone with the Wind before.
That was a great catch right there. Yes,
So,
exactly. The lights and darks are amazing.
Yeah, you can't wash them together, but in this film, they do a good job.
We don't like to mingle the lights and the darks.
Balance in all things, and I think we don't want to get too far down the road of our laundry.
No, we're talking about laundry, people. We're talking about it is. It is a film. When you talk about it, it's like, people can get their, can clench up a little bit. Before we finish, there's a couple things I did want to mention. The drape scene where she pulls the drapes down to make a dress for herself, because she has to look like a lady for Rhett. And I don't know if you're aware of this. There was a show in the 70s called The Carol Burnett Show with one of the funniest comedians of all time. And she did a parody of Gone with the Wind called Went with the Wind. And she wore with the freaking curtain rod. Brilliant. And Harvey Korman is Rhett Butler. It's just brilliant. And then I put down here at the bottom, friggin' Queen Latifah actually recreated it on her own talk show with the curtain rod. Pretty freaking cool. But one of the things is, growing up, that we watched Carol Burnett all the time, and that was like literally one of my mom's favorite skits was the Gone with the Wind thing. It was great. The last thing we're going to talk about, though, with Gone with the Wind, there's a couple of things. First thing is the final scene. We talked about it, where she, through this whole film, she can't decide what the hell she wants. She's just manipulating everybody. The real thing that she wants is to never be poor. And that's, we all know that. She's working her way to never be poor. She marries Rhett, so she'll never be poor. But in the end, when Melanie dies, spoiler alert, when Melanie dies,
oh no,
and Ashley it says, I don't know how I will ever live without her. And she realizes that Ashley truly was in love with his cousin, that she can't have him. And then she starts to realize that Rhett is the one thing in her life that was good. That they had Bonnie, their poor kid dies, and that's a whole nother thing. That's like a whole nother hour of the film, and another hour of this podcast. We're not going to get into it, but she comes back to the house and he's packed up. He's leaving.
Too little, too late.
Yeah. She had messed with him so much and it treated him like shit.
Because I think you can watch this one of two ways. Is this character's redemption and she finally realizes what true love is all about? Or is this just another in a long line of self-serving decisions, feelings, actions? Literally everything that goes on in this woman's head is, how do I benefit from whatever's happening? And it's I don't know the answer to that, because we don't really get a resolution to that at all. He's gone. She's not happy about it. And I don't know if you ever saw Gone with the Wind 2. I don't know if they get back together or not, but it is hard to know how sincere this was based on this character.
Yeah. So the thing is it's funny because my wife has watched it a few times and we watched it again together. And the best line of the movie, I mean, one of the best lines in the book, she says, "Where will I go? What will I do? If you leave me, I love you so much." And he's like, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." And brilliant. He finally says what we're all thinking. I don't give a shit about you. I am walking into this mist, never to return. Now, at the end, she doesn't chase after him like she could, but she doesn't. What does she say? Tomorrow is another day. I will win him back tomorrow, which tells me, he's cool and all, but I'm going to go back to Tara. I'm going to go hang out. The woman has never been about anything but herself. But it's interesting that you bring up, because my wife turned to me and she went, "So does she get him back?" The end pops up and I'm like, they show her at Tara, with her hat off and everything, and the final beautiful scene. And I was like, does she get Rhett back? And I'm like, what do you think? I mean, do you think that she even gives two shits about Rhett? I mean, I don't. I think that Rhett did, and that there may have been part of her that loved her, but I don't think she's got the energy to pursue him, in my opinion. Oh, you're mute. Yeah, just do sign language. I don't know what happened. You were fine for a second, and then it went away. This is Eric's got definitely. This is second episode, and his mic cuts out, and he freezes. I don't know what the hell is the matter with him. Let's see if he comes back in. Are you there? Nope, you're still mute. Let me talk. Nothing. Nope, I can't hear anything. Are you there? Nope. Try again. I don't know what it is. Let's see there. I'll try to add you. Nope, nothing. All right. But it was interesting that reboot and come back in. So it's interesting that Eric brought up. Yeah, he needs to restart AOL. Yeah. I mean, I have fiber, so I'm good. So it's all right. I'm not saying that I'm better. But I have fiber. But it's funny that Eric brought up Gone with the Wind 2. How many of you out there realize there was a Gone with the Wind 2, and it was absolutely horrendous? Came out in 1994 in the US as a miniseries. So he was talking earlier about them recreating this as a miniseries, and they actually tried to do that crap, and it was called Scarlett, with Joanne Whalley-Kilmer, who is Val Kilmer's wife. Very pretty woman, but not Scarlett O'Hara, and Timothy Dalton, James Bond, as Rhett Butler, and it was not good. It was actually kind of shit, to be honest with you. I could show you the trailer, but just look it up on YouTube yourself. You can find it. It really disgraces everything. There was a novel. Oh, all right, he's popped back in. Let's see what happens. Let's see. All right, say something.
Fucking stupid. I didn't touch anything. You thought I was just sitting here minding my own business.
It just went out.
Anyway.
But here's the thing: is for the people that listen on Spotify and Amazon Music, and I'm making a shameless plug right now. They're gonna find that hilarious because this keeps happening every week. So it's all good. It happens.
Adventures of Eric and technology. And I work in tech, people, but I don't have the capability to figure out anything, and nor have I ever had to. People figure things out for me, Greg.
I don't understand why you're just sitting there and it goes out. That is interesting.
It's unexplainable. What I was going to say is I don't know the answer to the question of did she or didn't she have this change of heart. But to truly be capable of love, you have to be able to think of someone other than yourself. And we don't see that from her ever. No. So I would have a hard time being convinced that this was anything more than the same old Scarlett. And if this movie, heaven forbid, went on for another hour, it would just be more of the same. This is not a turning point. This just happens to be the last scene of the movie.
Yes.
That's it.
And I was mentioning when you went offline that they did do a sequel in the 90s and it was horrendous. It was absolute horseshit. They had a book that was written in the early 90s called Scarlett, where they got permission to continue the story. Absolutely horrible. She goes back to Ireland and blah, 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 blah. She wants Rhett. She wants him back. She actually has a kid by him that he doesn't know. Remember when that was probably, we need to talk about this real quick. Remember when probably one of the craziest scenes in the movie when she's standing on the stairs telling him that she's pregnant with his child. He goes, in 1939, for him to go, well, I hope you have an accident. She freaking falls down the stairs.
Yeah.
That is one of the coldest things in 1939 I've ever seen. She takes a swing at him, rolls down the stairs, and loses a baby.
In a movie full of some of the oddest things you'll ever put to film.
Yeah.
You know, here's another one.
Yeah, and so that was a crazy one. And Scarlett, they pick it up where she actually does have the baby. She didn't miscarry, and blah 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 blah. You don't need to know. It's a piece of crap. So that being said,
based on the picture you just showed, it looks like a piece of crap.
No, I mean Timothy Dalton and James Bond as Rhett Butler alone tells you all you need to know about Scarlett. So
who was the other? Who was Scarlett? It looked like Angelica Houston or something.
It was Joanne Wally Kilmer, Val Kilmer's wife.
Oh,
from back in the day. But she's very pretty, but again, not Scarlett O'Hara, not Vivian Leigh. So
fair enough.
Let's go into the next film, which is its opponent for this evening. We're already been going for an hour and 13 minutes. So
we're going to go another hour and 13 minutes.
Yeah,
I'll tell
probably
you that.
On this one. I tell you what, I knew when we were talking about doing this tonight, I'm like, this is a lot to unpack. We've got a 4-hour film we're trying to talk about and try to keep this podcast short. That's going to be near impossible. Now we've got Casablanca, who, again, one of the greatest films of all time. It's ranked number 3rd. You've got characters like Humphrey Bogart playing Rick at Rick's American Cafe in Casablanca. For all of those who haven't watched the movie or don't know, that's in Morocco. It's on the coast of North Africa, and he runs a cafe that basically is a way station for people that are looking for papers to get the hell out of mainland Europe and get the hell out through Africa because the Nazis are closing in. And what's interesting about this film, it was made during World War II.
I had to look because I'm like, they got people to like play Nazis while Nazis are like stomping through Europe, and Operation Barbarossa's going on, and I was very taken by that. That it came out smack dab in the middle of World War II. But his bar Rick's, kind of reminded me of like the bar in Tatooine. It's just the hub for kind of people coming and going, and there's gambling in the back, and it's just kind of this not quite maybe as underworldly as Star Wars, but
So you're
still,
saying that Sam is like should have been playing.
play
Yeah,
it
that's
again, Sam.
Yeah, but I get it. They have a lot of, other than Sam, they have a lot of people playing music in there, a lot of entertainment, again, gambling going on. So it's kind of a front for people that are trying to get out. But what's great is you've got this character Rick against Humphrey Bogart. You know who he reminds me of?
If you don't mind me guessing,
You know who Rick reminds me of?
Rhett Butler.
In a way,
who, by the transitive theory of Han Solo, means that all three of these guys remind you of the other.
All I have to say is that George Lucas must have loved Casablanca and Gone with the Wind, because he only can build a character like Han Solo from these type of remnants of these other characters from other films. Rick is the same type of character in Casablanca. He tells everybody multiple times, I'm only in it for herself. Renault, who, by the way, is excellently played by Claude Rains. I love that character. Unbelievably. Renault, the French guy that's in charge of Casablanca.
Oh, the one who's taking advantage of immigrant women for sexual favors?
He has some
That
flaws.
one? That's the character you love? That's the one we're going with?
He has some flaws. He's horny.
But what about all the good things this rapist did?
All right. You caught me out on that one. But he is funny.
He has played it.
He's like Louis C.K.
It's good to have a sense of humor in these things.
He's like Louis C.K. He's pretty funny. Yeah, he's a creep, but man, he can tell some jokes.
Yeah, listen, who among us has told some funny jokes and also was a creep? Yeah, this one was, I found myself immediately drawn into this, to this story. They set it up quick and get into it quick. There's these papers that have, to some in the film who don't have the viewer's viewpoint, they're missing. Yeah. We know what has happened to them. They're what do you call that in movies? A MacGuffin, I think.
Yes. Yes.
And so we have the benefit of knowing where it is. We've got a love triangle. Well, not a triangle, but a V at the very least.
I would say a triangle because you've got three people. And
there's action and mystery, and it's funny and romance and love lost. They put it all together. I had never seen this film before, Greg. But I
not surprised.
Was in this. I was into this story from minute one. I wanted to know what was happening or going to happen to these people. They set it up well, and it only went from there.
Yeah, I agree. It is actually, with the studio system in that time in 1943, World War II starting, for them to make this type of film. And again, one of the things that we were talking about, Gone with the Wind had a script that kept getting rewritten every day. Again, connection to Gone with the Wind. Casablanca had a script that was rewritten almost every day. They didn't know where they were going. It was based on a play that they bought called A Night at Rick's that was about refugees fleeing from Nazi Germany and trying to find a safe haven. And so they had to kind of keep rewriting it, and it just started to work the way that they started to film it. One of the things was the director, Michael Curtiz, he was a refugee himself. He was a Hungarian refugee. So he filmed, and Kriplius actually put in here that nearly all the actors were refugees from the war. And that's true. Almost all the extras and people that had bit parts were refugees that had come out of that occupied territory, and he purposefully used those people, and that makes it have even greater impact.
Yeah, an energy to it that you might not otherwise have, for sure, just based on that type of casting. Yeah, that was neat. And by the way, we talked about the quotability of Gone with the Wind. I mean,
Yeah.
I had no freaking idea, but there were 4, I
Oh yeah.
counted, quotes that I know from just having been alive for 46 years that come directly from this movie. There
Yeah.
was, "Here's looking at you, kid.
Yep.
Uh, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. We'll always have Paris, and
Yep.
of all the gin joints and all the towns and all the world." Every time one of these would happen, I'm going,
Yeah.
"It's from this." No kidding.
Wow. Oh, who knew?
Well, I didn't.
Well, you know,
Um,
that's the thing is that so today, like we have "I'll Be Back," "Go Ahead, Make My Day," and things like that. But in 1943, when this movie came out, it was so iconic that these things stayed in our American vernacular. And even one that is continually misquoted, which is "Play it
mhm.
again, Sam." He never says "Play it again, Sam." He says "Play it." You played it for her, you can play it for me.
Yeah.
Play it. And she's clear, "Play it, Sam." So there's a misquote there, but it's still heavily used in American vernacular.
Well,
So
like
yeah, the
Luke,
movie is
Luke, I am
amazing.
your father.
Yeah.
The misquoted one becomes the one we all remember hearing.
Yeah.
But
Mandela effect or whatever you want to call it. But yeah.
yeah,
But it
uh,
is a movie that at that time, especially, it's so crazy because they knew they were making a film that, again, at this time, it was there were a lot of pro patriotic films being made because of the war and what was going on and about America's involvement in it. But this movie, as much as I love the other ones, I love patriotic movies. I love even the John Wayne's Back to Baton or whatever. This one doesn't come off as like corny. It comes
no, it
off as
doesn't beat you over the head with
no.
courtesy of the red, white, and blue boot in your ass type, pandering.
Yeah.
It's so well constructed that I don't know that I would have ever thought about it being a patriotic film. I can see the elements of it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't go out of its way to, try to get young men to enlist on their way out of the movie theater or whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, there was a lot of films doing that and buy war bonds and all that good stuff, and rightfully so at that time. During that era, there was a lot of escapist cinema. There was a lot of things that were trying to take people's minds off the war, but also make them inspired. And I don't think this film had that intention. What's funny is there was a film called Algiers that had came out a few years before, and they wanted to make something similar. And this screenplay fell in their laps, and it just kind of was a happy series of accidents
Hmm.
where everybody started working together on it, and it just fit. Clark Gable was not the first choice, but he was the best choice. Ingrid Bergman again was not the first choice. The actual play has 2 Americans, but the director was like, let's bring in a foreigner, let make it more European. And the fact that they do that does lend credibility to it. And I mean, there's so many things that is brilliant about the film when you watch, especially watch it for the first time, like you got to do. Um, the use of lights and shadow, the noir effect, because Humphrey Bogart's films, I almost said Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart's films were classically noir. He'd done the Maltese Falcon,
Mhm.
He'd done not the Millennium Falcon, but the Maltese Falcon.
Yes.
And he'd done, even though same, yeah, connections. But he'd done these films that were private eye noir films. And so he's stepping into this film that's different from those, but yet they treat the lights and shadows the same way.
I
It's
wouldn't
just
want to
brilliant.
see this movie in color. I know that there's
Oh
some
yeah.
sordid tale about colorizing this and the
Yeah.
negative reaction it received. It would not benefit this film in any way. You lose all of the, like you're talking about, shadow, um,
Yeah.
noir feel to the whole thing. I found myself like really glad that this movie was in black and white. And I don't always feel that way. I often think of it as just a technical limitation of the time or a budgetary limitation. But in this specific instance, I was like, hell yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's watch a quick scene from it.
Mhm.
This is the scene where Elsa is at the cafe. Rick is not there, and she's talking to Sam about playing it. What I love about this scene, I want everybody to watch really closely, is Ingrid Bergman's performance when the song As Time Goes By starts to play. It's truly gripping. It's one of the things that literally, it brings out so much emotion. So let's check this out.
Hello, Sam.
Hello, Miss Elsa. I never expect to see you again.
It's been a long time.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of water under the bridge.
Some of the old songs, Sam.
Yes, ma'am.
Where is Rick?
I don't know. I ain't seen him all night.
When will he be back?
Not tonight no more. He ain't coming. He went home.
Does he always leave so early?
Oh, he never. Well, he's got a girl up to the Blue Parrot. Goes up there all the time.
Liar.
You used to be a much better liar, Sam.
Leave him alone, Miss Elsa. You bad luck to him.
That's a true friend.
Play it once, Sam. For all time's sake.
I don't know what you mean, Miss Elsa.
Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by.
Oh, I can't remember it, Miss Elsa. I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you. Sing it, Sam.
You must remember this. A kiss is just a kiss. A sigh is just a sigh.
The face.
The
reminiscing. That is just so powerful.
As time goes by.
The framing of that is just wow.
And when two lovers woo,
It just stays there.
they still say I love you.
You wouldn't
It's
get a
great.
shot. You wouldn't get a shot this long in a film today.
No, not at all. And that's so impactful.
No matter what the future brings, as time goes by.
Sam, I thought I told you never to play.
Ooh. Just powerful. And Sam's like, I'm getting the hell out.
Well, so long.
Get the hell out of here. But it's that, yeah.
Wow. First of all,
Yeah.
the acting and that use of that song as almost like an overture
Yes.
throughout the film was really good. And
Yeah. Oh.
and I'm a fan of jazz standards and kind of the Great American Songbook as it is. So this film having this one, It Had to Be You, The Very Thought of You is in this, and music by Al Jolson and Cole Porter. I mean, this song isn't by them, but I don't know. I don't know if films back then had reputations for having great soundtracks, you know, like we know that today. Like Forrest Gump, the soundtrack to that is amazing or whatever. But I was really taken by the way that they were able to weave music into the film, and it plays such a big part in the story as we moved along. I thought it was really neat.
Yeah, I agree. And what's interesting is that Max Steiner, again, we brought him up. He did the music for Gone with the Wind as well. He did not like the song As Time Goes By. He thought it was schmaltzy. It came from another play, and he tried desperately to get it removed from the film. The problem was that scene where Ingrid Bergman goes da dee da 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 dee, telling him what it is. They wanted to reshoot that. Now she had already left to go do a movie with Cary Grant, and then she'd cut her hair.
Oh,
and they brought her back.
Too noticeable.
Yeah, they were like, well, they either got to put her in a wig, and they were like, you know what, that's it. So Max Steiner went, all right, I'm going to use it against itself. And if you listen to the film, he incorporates As Time Goes By it so many times in the film in an orchestrated manner. So instead of being against the song, he used it to his advantage, which was the brilliance of
it's
the
an
of the music.
overture of the whole thing. I thought that was really neat,
Yeah.
and knowing that story makes it even more
It's
clever
crazy.
and neat.
A couple other things we talked about, the scene with Rick. Let's move that out. This scene here was really impactful.
They say that this is, one of the top individual scenes in any movie, any place ever. And I agreed. I don't know what song they were singing in German, but you don't have to know that, because you get a sense immediately as to what is happening here, and the powerful nature of it all. And this is a big one. What do you think about this one?
Well, so the thing is like when Kriplius mentioned this earlier, that they were mostly immigrant extras that were brought in for this film, and that's one of the reasons this is so impactful. So you have the actress in the upper left who was playing a French girl, living in Casablanca. She's messing around with the Germans, and they're not pretty happy about it. And then the Germans start playing their national anthem and getting the band to play it for them. And then Laszlo comes down, Elsa's husband, and tells the band to play La Marseillaise, and it's French national anthem, and then everybody joins in. It's such a powerful moment because they drowned out. And again, take into context when this happened. This was 1943.
Yeah.
At the height of World War II. And now it was made, things were like just right in the middle of the heated. So to be able to drown out the German soldiers and for the French people to reclaim a little bit of their dignity in this scene is so massive. So it really is iconic. I watched it the first time. I'm like, that's something we definitely have to talk about. If we don't talk about anything else in Casablanca, we have to talk about that scene because it's very impactful.
And in 1943, I mean, maybe we're starting to get a sense of where the war is going. And maybe that's easier with the benefit of hindsight. And I watch a bunch of this series called World War II in color, where they do colorize. And it is not by any stretch of the imagination some sort of deep dive into the intricacies of that war. It's very surface level, but we don't know how the war is going to end at this point.
No.
And so that is an even more powerful scene when you think about that. For a person seeing this in that time and in that place, there's still so much unknown. We're still getting body count totals, and we're still, buying, like you said, buying war bonds and all of these things. And it's powerful. As I sat here and watched it in 2024, far removed from any of the emotion of the time or place. And so I can't imagine what it was like to see in its historical context in that moment. That's it would be fascinating to be able to do that.
It's crazy because both films, to see when they originally were released in the historical context, these are really good matched films.
Yes.
In our box office battles, really is. It's like Sophie's Choice right now because they're both culturally significant. Some for more noble reasons, like I'd say Casablanca is something that today still resonates in the aspect of doing the right thing, of having a noble cause. The fact that one of the things I love about it, so we're going back to the Rick character and the Han Solo thing. What makes Han Solo a great character is the fact that he says throughout A New Hope, I'm only in it for me. I'm only in it for me, kid. I just want my money. I'm going to get the hell out of here. And then he shows up at the Death Star, shoots one of the TIE fighters to help Luke win the battle. went, oh, I thought it was just for him. That's the exterior that Han Solo gives. Clark Gable, Rhett Butler does the same thing. I'm just in it for me. But yet on the bridge, when push comes to shove, I'm going back. I'm going to fight. I'm going to help fight for my boys. Same thing with Rick. He's like, I'm in it for me. I'm not in it for anybody else. I'm in it for the money. And then this woman comes up with her husband and they're trying to buy their passage out. He's at the roulette wheel. He's not going to make it. And Renault's gonna, I mean, for lack of a better term, gonna bang his wife for their papers. And Rick is like, hell no, and goes in and purposefully loses money and rigs the roulette so that the guy wins and they can buy their ticket out of Casablanca. And so then you see this character, and what I loved about it was the supporting characters, Sasha and the bartender, that they just love the fact that he did that, because they know that's who he really is.
Yeah. Well, and so we kind of see two different sides of being a self-centered person. And you have self-centered people in these films and Han Solo who are lean toward the self-centered live and let live, do no harm types. And then in other cases like Scarlett, we see self-centered, I'll do anything no matter the negative effect on anyone else as long as it benefits me. So that's an interesting dichotomy between all of them being self-centered people, but kind of this cosmic approach to how life is very different between some of the characters. I did also find myself making a lot of comparisons and contrasts with Rhett Butler's character when I watched Casablanca first and kept thinking back to this film when I was watching Gone with the Wind. So yeah, I totally agree. I don't know, it's not that I don't want a hug from my kid. What I don't want is him trying to climb back. My desk is so precariously put in the corner of my room. I have trouble getting in here. Now he's, sad. He just wanted a hug. I don't know that this film does any one thing any better than any other good films does. I don't know that you could just pick out and say the story in Casablanca is better than any other story, and so it appears high on this list, or the acting is so much better than any. I can't think of that. What it is to me as I watched this was one of those the whole is greater than the sum of its parts type thing. It all worked together. It's like, and I didn't go to film school like you did, but I could imagine a professor using this example as an example of not the art of movie making as far as what the viewer sees as the end result, but the art of movie making in its production, its development, how you think through what you do. Like you said, they're doing rewrites while it's filming. We still don't know. I think I read that that Ilsa's character was told to basically treat both Rick and Victor equally because we don't know yet who she's going to end up with.
Exactly.
So we can't have you leaning one way or the other. It is, I mean, like I said, I think it's a sum of you didn't do any one thing any better than anybody else. But you know who else, Greg, didn't do anything better than anybody else and was still great? Emmett Smith. And so I think, or like a Toyota Camry, right? It is the best-selling car in the United States for many, many years. It does not do anything remarkably well.
Okay.
It's consistently solid. It is something you can rely on. And that's how I felt about this film, was just at every turn, I felt comforted by what was happening on screen. I felt pulled along in the story as opposed to kind of mentally pushing it along because I'm ready, for the next thing.
Right.
Okay, we've developed whatever we're developing here. Let's get on to the next thing. I never felt that way as I watched this film. That was really
I think one of the things it has in its favor is it does have a shorter running time, and it does a lot in the hour and 40 minutes that it has. Just the Peter Lorre stuff in the beginning, then the papers, and then everything, the flashback. And so it establishes everything so well, and it does it really quickly. It's very edited extremely well. The atmospheres are set up really good. The final scene is so iconic. I mean, we talked about it. Here's looking at you, kid. We'll always have Paris. The speech he gives her at the end, which is one of those things like we talked about. They didn't know who she was going to end up with, and the writers wanted for her to end up with Rick, but it was the producers who went, a married woman abandoning her husband in the middle of the war.
right.
That's just not going to work for us. And it is more noble than anything that a character like Rick would do, to give up the love of his life to go on and to be able to return to the war effort, to let her go and support the war effort. And then you have them watch her away, and he ends up with Renault, who is again, he's a rapist, but he is one of the funniest characters.
One of the kindest rapists
you've ever met. Yeah. But
Yeah.
they end up being friends. And it is like what you said, it's a comfort film. It's an enjoyable film. It's an easy watch. But I will say this, I like Humphrey Bogart quite a lot. Oh yeah. Somebody else said, we will always have you, kid. No, it's here's always looking at you, kid. We will always have Paris. You mixed them up. Yeah, we'll always have Paris. And here's looking at you, kid. But that's cool because you put him the funniest, terrible. Okay, whatever. So anyway, the thing is that the thing about Humphrey Bogart is I was a fan of his growing up, and Casablanca was one of the last films of his I saw. I saw The Maltese Falcon first, and then I saw Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and then I saw The African Queen, The Cane Mutiny. And I'm going to be 100% honest here. I like all of those better than Casablanca. Not because Casablanca is inferior. It's because of the audience. For me, when I watch The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, and they're riding a freaking boat down the Amazon, and they're trying to get from one point to the other. It's a great travel movie. I'm more into it than I am into Casablanca. I love it. Like Casablanca. When I watched it, it was great. My wife watched it, and she turned to me because she'd watched it a couple times, maybe on cable TV or whatever. And she went, I did not realize how great this movie was until I watched it with you just now. And I went, you know what? You're right. Maybe I'm not appreciating it as much as I could. And maybe my opinion's wrong on these other films, but really, those are good too.
Your opinion can't be wrong. But we also said, if you establish in your mind what an actor is or isn't based on some character, it's hard to unsee that. It's the reason why so many actors get typecast. It's the reason Jason Alexander will always be a schlubby in whatever he's in, because he was George Costanza, and that's what we all know him as. And maybe people don't know that that actor is a great song and dance guy on Broadway, but we just know him as Schlubby George. So
Schlubby George.
If your experience with Humphrey Bogart is that, and you saw him in films that either were more impactful to you, or you thought his performance was better, or you thought his performance set him up as a person or an actor in a way that doesn't hold true in this film, whatever the reason is valid. And I will say that, having watched Casablanca, I would be interested in watching some of those movies that you just mentioned
Yeah.
in my own free time, because I was really, if coming from you, who I respect as a podcast partner and as a friend, think that highly of them, then I would want to watch them. And B, my experience watching Casablanca was positive enough for me to want to seek out maybe some other work of his, because I was really taken by this. I don't know if it would change your opinion, and I guess we will get into our closing arguments and vote here in just a moment. In 2008, Greg, it was reported that Madonna was pursuing a remake of this film to be set in modern day Iraq. And I am just so happy that whatever happened to keep that from becoming a part of our collective reality. Can you imagine a worse piece of shit than Madonna taking over a film this great, revered, critically, and with audiences, and turning it into, what was that? Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
Evita.
Evita, turning it into some self-serving, look at me, I'm Madonna, pick me movie. No freaking way. I read that and was like, how gross.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is kind of an untouchable film. If they would remake it, there's going to be people like with Gone with the Wind. We talked about that earlier. If you make either of these, you better have your A game, because these are iconic films that you could put on, anybody can put on, and they're unmatched. So before we get into the voting, I will say this. This is a really hard one, because I think regardless of Gone with the Wind's problematic issues, you can't deny its cinematic brilliance, and the same goes for Casablanca. As much as I love Bogart's other work, this is considered his finest achievement, and it's considered probably one of the greatest films of all time. So is it? So that being said, what are your opinions?
All right. So I watched Casablanca first, and I watched Gone with the Wind, obviously, after that. That's how linear time works, Greg. And so when the credits are rolling on Gone with the Wind, I immediately knew that I was going to vote for Casablanca. Blanca. As I have lived my life, and I've been very busy, and the kids always have something going on. I've got big projects at work. But as I allow my mind to wander in those quiet moments of day or night, this became a much closer race and decision than I expected it to, than when I first watched the films. I didn't like the Scarlett O'Hara character. I know now I'm not supposed to like the Scarlett O'Hara character. I didn't, I maybe felt like I appreciated the spectacle more than I appreciated the movie Gone with the Wind.
Gotcha.
And Casablanca, I appreciated as a film, as a piece of art. I am still voting for Casablanca for this battle, but this to me was, I mean, we've only done 2 episodes. This was a way tougher decision for me than Schindler's List and Citizen Kane, 2 movies which I did like, but that choice was easy for me. This one, if you caught me on a different day, I might pick Gone with the Wind, but I think I'm going to stick with my initial instinct. It's Casablanca for me.
Okay. So that's actually, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It is an amazingly great film. The thing for Gone with the Wind for me that stands out are, without a doubt, the performance of its 2 leads. Vivian Leigh as Scarlett O'Hara and Clark Gable as Rhett Butler. They're freaking amazing. I don't think Rhett Butler or Clark Gable won the Oscar, but it won like 9 Oscars that year. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, and Hattie McDaniel. There's so many things to like about it. And what I do is when I think about films, what I like over another, when you watch like MasterChef or something that's like that, they have this thing where they'll have 2 dishes in front of them. One looks really pretty and the other one looks, not as appetizing, but then they taste them and it all comes down to which one I would eat again.
Mhm.
So it has to be what I would watch again and again. And while I have watched Gone with the Wind a few times in my lifetime, the movie that I would watch again right now is Casablanca. So I agree with you this week. We do not need to go to a vote. I had to think long and hard about this as well. I really did.
Man, the way you set all that up, I thought you were definitely voting for
I did that
for
on purpose.
Gone with the Winds.
I
I was like, we're never gonna agree. We're gonna be doing this for years, and we're never gonna.
No,
Well, I agree with you. I think it's easy. I all things being equal, that's I think a perfectly valid way to look at how do you choose a winner. We are doing, like I said at the top of the show, something that we are discouraged from doing, comparing art. I don't like it when people compare one guitarist to another and that guy sucks and that guy is great. And music to me never was a competition. I don't think, even though we have awards for these things, I don't think filmmakers, the good ones, make films out of a sense of competition. They want to tell stories. They want to have an outlet for their creativity. And so it's not always fair to compare, but that is the point of our show. And so tonight, Casablanca.
Yeah. And again, I agree. We talk about comparing art, but I think in 2 episodes we've done this and it's been hard decisions. Now I know you made jokes about Citizen Kane, but it's extremely well-crafted film and it is deserving of being considered the number 1 of all time. But yeah, when you look at Schindler's List, it is impactful as well. And it has a different type of impact for a different type of audience. So we're comparing art, but we are with that disclaimer of saying, look, we voted Casablanca over Gone with the Wind. Regardless of Gone with the Wind's problematic issues, it is still an exceptional film. We're not diminishing that. It's just that one has a particular impact over the other. And this is what the podcast is about.
I think if you're willing, as I believe both of us are, to do it thoughtfully, then it's a little more palatable than just that sucks, but this is awesome. And
we're not saying anything sucks. We're saying that things are both great, but this is better than this. That's all we're doing. Yeah. And Mike Florida, I want to say one other thing. Don't worry about your comments or anything. You're not hurting us. He made a comment about making an earlier comment that timing sucks. Don't worry about it, dude. We are glad that you're here watching the show. We do want to say for anybody else that is out there, you can listen to the show on your favorite podcast provider, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, Podcaster, Stitcher, so many others that are out there. All you got to do is go to your favorites and say, hey, please put it, look for Box Office Battles with Greg and Eric. Also, if you want, you can look up our information. It's right here at the bottom of the screen. You can email us at boxofficebattles@gmail.com. If we're not on a podcast provider that you like, let us know. We will do something about it. Also, you can always find us on Twitch, on Box Office Battle Pod, and on YouTube at Box Office Battle Podcast. We want everybody to subscribe and follow on those platforms so that you can always get notified of when we're going to go live. Our next live stream, this is the next one, and it's a big one. It is going to be the next week, the 29th of July. It's another first round matchup, and it is the number 2 seed, The Godfather, versus Lawrence de Arabia.
Lawrence de Arabia. I will not be watching this one in Spanish or French, whichever.
I just realized the
poster you
poster I
ran.
used. Yeah,
we already had one big upset with the number 8 over the number 1. So we shall see. Now we are getting into a movie I have seen previously, but I'll
which is
watch
it
again?
Which one?
I saw The Godfather 4. Remember we did Mafia movie May with the Jared
yes.
Goes to the Movies, and we got about 2 weeks into it, and the girls hated it. But we watched this and Goodfellas and The Irishman at the time. So at least I've got one that I'm familiar with. I'm excited to see it. So, Greg, thank you as always for the wonderful, thoughtful discussion. You the man.
Oh yeah, thank you. And you know what? Next week. Thank you everybody for tuning in to Box Office Battles with Greg and Eric. Please come and let all your friends know that we're out there, to tune into YouTube or Twitch or just listen to us on your favorite podcast provider. You can always email us. You can always ask us questions. We're glad to hear it. And with that being said, we will check you out next week when we do The Godfather versus Lawrence of Arabia. Anything else, Eric, before we go?
Nope. Y'all take it easy. Bye.
All right. Bye, y'all. Have a great week. We're out.